Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the December 2nd, 2025 City Council regular meeting. As a reminder, we have Spanish interpretation services available in person and via Zoom. On Point Language Solutions is in the back left corner. If anyone needs assistance with interpretation services, they will give you a device so you could listen in another language. And I can't see who's back there. Either Victor or Nicholas will now provide information on how to receive interpretation services if you're in need of them. Thanks, Nicholas.
Hello. Yes, thank you. A todos los que necesiten interpretación en español, aquí en la parte de atrás está el booth con los servicios de auriculares para que puedan tenerlos y van a recibir interpretación simultánea inmediata. Y a los que están mirando por internet, tienen que mirar en la parte de abajo, en la barra de abajo, el mundo, el globo terráqueo allí, y hacen clic en ese globo y va a aparecer la función de lenguajes, language en inglés, y tienen la opción de inglés y español. Pueden hacer clic en español y van a recibir toda la interpretación simultánea en español. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Can we please have a roll call?
Councilmember Johnson? Here. Councilmember Nagengast?
Here.
Councilmember Penrose?
Here.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Here.
Mayor Brownstone?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll now ask that you all join me to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Thank you. Can I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So move. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those against? Motion approved. We will now move on to, we don't have any proclamations, but we're very lucky this evening. We have a presentation from the Alcove Youth Advisory Group, and there'll be a number of students here, and I guess each person might have some chance to present a slide or two, and we look forward to it. So welcome, and thanks for coming this evening. Appreciate it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and community. My name is Ryan Lopez.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Adrian Vasquez Contreras.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Emma Ta.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Scarlett Cortez.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Isla Heckman.
And we're going to be talking to you guys about Alcove, and more specifically, the Youth Advisory Council. Now, you may be wondering, what is Alcove? Alcove is a third place for youth 12 to 25 years to find community, support, advice, or even just a moment of pause. Every Alcove Center is guided by an active youth advisory group comprised of young people from the local community who represent diversity in race, ethnicity, gender identity, expression, sexual orientation, lived experience, ability, and socioeconomic status.
The goal is to ensure that youth voice and experience is included in the development and service of each center. Alcove services mental health, physical health, substance use, peer support, family support, and education and employment.
The Youth Advisory Group is a group of young leaders ages 12 to 25. Okay, yeah, no worries.
The Youth Advisory Group is a group of young leaders ages 12 to 25 dedicated to improving mental health services and advocating for the needs of youth on the coast side. Our mission is to empower young people to become leading voices in refining mental wellness, reducing stigma, and increasing access to youth mental health support. Our vision is to revolutionize mental health for young people.
The Youth Advisory Group's core values are giving the youth in the community a voice that is diverse, inclusive, and advocates for the needs of young people. We are accessible, we normalize conversations, promote social justice, and educate communities. We have a holistic and empathetic approach to mental wellness that is free of judgment.
Now, you may be wondering, what is a third place? It's something that we keep throwing around. Well, it comes from one of Ray Oldenburg's works from 1989, The Great Good Place. And we have a quote to describe it where it says, "A designation for a great variety of public places that host regularly voluntary, informal, and happily anticipated gatherings of individuals beyond the realms of home and work." Now, if we bring that back down to earth for a little bit, what that really means is that third places are social spots where we could socialize and unwind away from home and work, or first and second places, respectively. Third places allow us to forget about the stresses of the day, build new relationships, and strengthen pre-existing connections.
Why is alcove needed? Why a third place is needed? Half Moon Bay lacks a third place suitable and attractive to youth. Growing up on the coast side, the only option was really hanging out at Round Table or driving 40 minutes over the hill. And with as little opportunities as Half Moon Bay has, communities like Pescadero, La Honda, San Gregorio, and even more have fewer places for youth to go. Youth loneliness, anxiety, and depression have all spiked since the pandemic. In addition, the COVID-19 pandemic resulted in higher costs and shorter hours for many businesses, further making these third places less accessible to youth after school or work.
Alcove Half Moon Bay Center, frequent and recurring events to one of our sister locations in San Mateo. YAG event examples include game nights, arts and craft workshops, volunteer opportunities, nature repeats, and youth outreach workshops.
The Alcove Center at Half Moon Bay will provide a free third place for youth that is easily accessible. We will offer things like a quiet area to study, a welcoming space to hang out with friends, mental health services designed to be a one-stop shop for youth. Our location will be near the Stone Pine Shopping Center, which is close to both the high school and Cunha Middle School. Our center will have designated areas for services, leisure, and essential and vital resources.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. If you have any questions or comments, please ask.
Well, thank you all for coming here, and thank you all for educating the public about this terrific organization and the services you provide to the community and to youth, and for providing a much-needed third place for a lot of folks. So thank you again. It's great that you came here and participating in city government. So thanks again. Any questions or from council?
Is this a place that's already open in Half Moon Bay or under planning? What's the status?
It's said to be open later next year, hopefully by April or depending on the weather, really.
Is there a particular location yet?
We actually have a lease sign for 255 Main Street. It's next to the hair salon across from the Half Moon Bay Coffee Shopping Center.
Central location. Sounds great. Thank you. Keep us posted. All right. Thanks. And come again when you got it open. We'll talk more. Thanks. Okay, next on our agenda is some announcements, community activities. How many of you are going, raise your hand if you're going to Night of Lights Friday. You all familiar with Night of Lights? Okay. If you're not familiar or you've never been, it's great. It starts at 6 o'clock. There's incredible floats come down the street. There's music. Brings a lot of folks downtown to visit shops. And if it gets cold, you can go into IDS Hall, has a whole crafts fair. So please don't forget, that's this Friday night, and the parade begins at 6 o'clock. There's also the Lighted Boat Festival at the harbor on the 13th, and that starts at 4 o'clock. And it's another great event. Come on down, you can go on the boats, you can have chowder, and they decorate their boats beautifully. So that's what's coming up. Anything else? All right, that's it for now. We'll keep you posted on anything new going on. Great. A quick report out from our recent closed session meetings.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Community. The Council did meet in closed session earlier this evening to discuss 2 items. One item of existing litigation, the case Ellingson versus City of Half Moon Bay, and a second item regarding public employment, City Attorney. Nothing to report out from those 2 items. However, I did want to report out from another recent closed session regarding anticipated litigation to announce that the City of Half Moon Bay and all 20 cities in the county have joined the County of San Mateo's lawsuit against the state of California to recover approximately $38 million in vehicle license fee funding shortfall. And that lawsuit was originally filed in August, and the 20 cities joined just a couple weeks ago. There is more information on the County of San Mateo's website. They have a press release on the county website with more information and the case number. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate the update. City Manager, I don't believe we have any updates to council.
We just have the one we talked
just
about.
have one? Okay,
earlier.
great.
So, and then one quick thing, but you've already covered it. So, if, there we go. Real quick, very simple, take a picture of this QR code. The County of San Mateo is doing a countywide survey about emergency preparedness and concerns of residents. And at this point, the coast side is very, very underrepresented. So it only takes about 10 minutes, and it's really crucial if you live or work here on the coast to respond. So please grab that screenshot and fill it out. If you're listening and can't do that, if you just go to the county website, which is smcgov.org, and search Emergency Prep Survey, it'll come up. So please do that. And then I do have one more slide just to reiterate something that the mayor shared. So the Nights of Lights, it's plural, started with the tree lighting last Friday night in MacTrucha Plaza, and a great event. I think there was karaoke as well. Seen some pretty good pictures of that. This Friday is the parade, and it's amazing. I hope everybody comes. And then there's 2 more events on Main Street to round out the events this year. So check it out. It's a lot of fun. And thanks to the Chamber for planning and hosting. And that's it.
Great. Thanks a lot, Matthew. Appreciate that. Okay. So we're going to move on to public forum. If you want to speak up at public forum, fill out a form. I think most people have already. And the way public forum works, if you're not familiar, each person gets 3 minutes to speak. And there's a timer up front. It lights up, and there's a tone. So there's a tone at the 2.5-minute mark, meaning you have 30 seconds left. And then there's a final tone at the 3-minute mark, means you should be wrapping it up. Okay. Also, public forum is to talk about anything you want, items that aren't on the formal agenda. Items that are on the agenda, the public will again have an opportunity to comment on any of the agendized items. So We will start with Deborah Penrose.
We are losing our democracy and becoming an autocracy. Countries that slide from democracy tend to follow similar patterns. Here are 12 markers that describe how the United States has regressed and is becoming an autocracy. A political system limiting personal freedom, suppressing opposition, and controlling civil liberties by enforcing strict obedience at the expense of personal freedom. Autocrats stifle dissent and speech. Autocrats persecute political opponents. Autocrats bypass the legislature. Autocrats use the military for domestic control. Autocrats defy the courts. Autocrats declare national emergencies on false pretenses. Autocrats vilify marginalized groups. Autocrats control information and the news media. Autocrats try to take over universities. Autocrats create a cult of personality. Autocrats use power for personal profit. Autocrats manipulate the law to stay in power. The frightening fact is that the United States has regressed on all 12 of these, and we have already lost what most of Americans hold dear, and that is our individual freedom and our ability to elect and hold responsible our leaders. We no longer have the luxury of time. Now is the time to protest. It is critical that every elected official who swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and of California show that they are willing to defend them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Our next speaker is Joaquin Jimenez, and then he will be followed by Stephen Edelschein, or Scheim. Sorry if I mispronounced that. So first Joaquin, and then Stephen Edelschein.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, city staff, members of the public. My name is Joaquin Jimenez, and I'm here to give you a little bit of debrief on the event that we had November 22nd, Music and Vendors. We had the perfect weather, beautiful day to be out in the downtown Half Moon Bay. We had our local vendors, and a lot of people came around. Thank you for allowing us to do these events. Our next event is December 20th. Same location, Magdutra Plaza, Kelly Avenue. We have more vendors. Then the same thing, 12 to 5. Come and join us. We're gonna have some piñatas and other activities for the family. Library's gonna be there with us. And a lot of vendors, a lot of local vendors. Thank you. Another thing, the last meeting, there was a proclamation about, Lenny Roberts, and the work that she's done, for the coast for the last 70 years. I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on at Point Reyes. I don't know if you follow. The community is moving out. They have less farmers, less farm workers. The ranchers are losing their property. And it's a fear right now that could happen to us as well. Half Moon Bay, we're trying to do as much as possible to preserve our heritage of farming and ranching. Not only Half Moon Bay, but here in the coast, Montera to Pescadero, Woodside, and other areas. And it's possible that it could happen. It's a lot of interest, in people to develop Half Moon Bay and not to build housing for community, not to build housing for farm workers, not to build housing for underserved community, for low-income community. but there's an interest, to develop Half Moon Bay, to make it a resort town, a resort community. And that's something, that 70 years, Lenny Roberts has done this work. She was able to keep Half Moon Bay the way it is. I know some of you have done a lot of work as well, to make sure that Half Moon Bay stays what Half Moon Bay is. It is a struggle. Our ranchers or local ranchers are struggling. Our local farmers are struggling. Now think about our farm workers, the same thing. Every year we have less farm workers, less farms. We have to do something about it. Please, think about, we don't want to see Half Moon Bay overdeveloped, with resorts and hotels. Welcome to Half Moon Bay, but let's keep Half Moon Bay what it is. A ranching and farming community, and this is the only one that we have here in the coast, in San Mateo County. There's nothing else. So think about that, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. Our next speaker is Stephen Adelsheim, who will be followed by Sarah Kremer or Creamer, I'm not sure, but in case. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the City Council, my name's Stephen Adelsheim. I'm a resident of El Granada, and I wanted to speak for a minute to you about the exciting development of the Alcove program in your community. I want to first acknowledge the wonderful presentation of our Alcove youth advisors and the wonderful job they've been doing developing this program. As I moved to El Granada a number of years ago, I've been involved in trying to bring these integrated youth health service programs to the state of California. I work at Stanford. I direct our Center for Youth Mental Health and Well-Being. I'm a child psychiatrist by training and really came to see the value of creating these programs in partnership with communities across the state. I can tell you, as we were looking at and talking to many people here in the community about the need for additional support for the youth in Half Moon Bay, it was very exciting to meet with some of your staff, folks from the school district, and really a shout out to the people at Coast Pride who were really willing to take on the development of this critical program for young people, not only for the third space of being able to have activities, but a place really with a one-stop shop and no wrong door for early mental health care, physical health, early substance abuse support, peer support as well for the young people of the coast side here, given the critical need we have for these supports and services for our youth and families. The application that the coast side folks and Coast Pride people led was an amazing application to the state for funding. It brought together 20 letters of support from your community and multiple partners to create these supports and services for the young people here. So I just wanted to take a moment to say how wonderful it is, frankly, to be a member of this community, to see the wonderful response for the young people here in terms of recognizing the need for these supports and services, the amazing work of the youth here and the many community agencies that have really stepped up to be supportive. It's going to be very exciting to see this site open in the spring, and we're really excited to continue to be of support in making this resource available to the community. So congratulations to you, and congratulations to everybody here for the wonderful work to this point. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for helping to bring these services to the coast side. Appreciate it. Our next speaker now is Sarah, is it Kremer or Creamer?
It's Kremer.
It is Kremer. That's what I thought. Great. Thank you. And after Sarah Kremer, we have one person online, Dana Johnson.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council and city staff and members of the community. I'm also here to speak in support of Alcove Half Moon Bay. I am a licensed professional clinical counselor as well as a board-certified art therapist, and I've worked for almost 30 years in different kinds of systems, and I'm really excited to hear how Alcove is going to bring together different systems to help young people find a space where they feel comfortable and they feel comfortable seeking help when they need it, and that Alcove will be there to provide that help when they need it. waiting lists to see therapists, to see psychiatrists. You may know they're very long if you can even find a provider. This will be a place to bring together people who are already working in the community to provide those services for young people who have been asking for this help that they need and for places where that they can develop their own skills. I'm also I wanted to acknowledge the youth advisors who are not here just to do presentations. They are very integral to the development of the center. They work with staff in terms of interviewing other Alco Center staff. They're able to say, this is someone who really we could connect with, who would be there to support other young people. They're there to develop wellness activities and find ways for other young people to be part of the center. So they are developing an amazing array of services, and they will be here to support other young people coming in to get that help. So we really appreciate all of your support and ongoing support as they develop and open their center. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. We now have two speakers who are online. The first, you'll have to tell me if it's pronounced Dana or Dana Johnson, and then Amy from San Mateo County. So we'll start out. Is it Dana or Donna? Dana.
Hello, hi, yes, Mayor. It's Dana.
Great.
Dana Johnson.
Great. Thank you for letting me know. Appreciate it. Okay, go ahead. Start.
No problem. Thank you. My name is Dana Johnson, and I identify with they and he pronouns. I hold space as a board member for Coast Pride LGBTQ Center, which is also the hub and the connector over Alcove. I'm also an LGBTQIA plus commissioner for the county and identified as the Coast representative for the LGBTQIA plus commission. I am also here to speak in acceptance and approval of moving forward with Alcove. I think you've heard all the various different presentations as well as the various remarks about the amazingness of it. I am coming to it from looking at it with working with youth for over about 20 years, some that are also detained youth and some that also have various different severe suffering that they may have had with mental health spaces. This space that is being created as an affirming and safe space. And the most best thing about it is that it's a build-up to where kids can feel safe with other kids. So it's a space where peer-to-peer communication and interaction will be going on, as well as peer-to-peer wellness. And I think with the stigma around mental health, it's nothing like having a space where other peers will feel comfortable speaking to their peers about things that they may be challenged with and seeing how they can get the support and resources. So I highly, highly, highly hopefully recommend that you all consider moving forward with having Alcove. There is one in San Mateo as well. So the hard part is if this doesn't move forward, then are we saying to our folks that they have to go all the way over the hill if they also have transportation challenges? So again, this program is amazing, and I think that the YAG group that came and presented did an amazing job. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the work that you're doing for your community.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you for your comments this evening. Appreciate it. Our next speaker is Amy.
Hello, council members and mayor. Thank you so much for having me. Just wanted to say that I'm here speaking as an individual, not as my role as an employee of San Mateo County. I am also on the board of Coast Pride, and I wanted to give my accolades to the YAG for presenting a very professional presentation here today, and for the amount of work that they've put into establishing Alcove here on the coast. The coast is far away from the rest of the county, and we need the support for our youth. Many of our youth and our families do not have cars, do not have time to get over the hill, and don't have access to this kind of support. And the fact that this place is built by youth for youth makes it a really important and special place to serve our community here on the coast. So I wanted to congratulate the YAG and, show my support for what an amazing place this will be.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate your comments this evening. I believe that is the last of our speakers. Okay. Public forum is now officially closed. So we will move on to our consent calendar. Someone like to make, does anyone have anything to pull? Okay. Someone like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move that we waive the reading of resolutions and ordinances, that we approve the minutes of November 14, 2025 special meeting, that we approve the minutes of the November 18, 2025 special meeting, that we approve the minutes of the November 18, 2025 regular meeting, that we approve the minutes of the November 18, 2025 joint City Council/Planning Commission special meeting, that we approve the minutes of the November 22nd, 2025 special meeting, that we accept the improvements for the Creekside Court subdivision located at 320 Church Street, that we adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Kittleson and Associates, Incorporated, in an amount not to exceed $149,880 for the preparation of a Safe Streets for All road safety action plan, and that we adopt a resolution receiving the City of Half Moon Bay annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended June 20, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Nobody opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to our next agendized item, ordinances and public hearings. We'll have an introduction of an ordinance adding Chapter 7.65, the commercial vitality, to the Half Moon Bay Municipal Code. And I believe we'll begin with a staff report.
Mr. Mayor, looks like we're having a little bit of a technical issue. Once we get it resolved, we'll move forward with the
Yeah, bear with us. Got another minute here, pulling up our slides.
There was one titled public hearing, and it had your name on it, Karen. That's not it? Oh, okay.
Sorry? Oh. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council and Community. I'm Karen Decker, Economic and Community Vitality Manager, and I'm here to welcome the public, re-welcome the public to an introduction and an extended public hearing for a new commercial vitality ordinance that, if it passes, it will be added to our municipal code. This ordinance, we have conducted a study session and a first reading, and so the arc of this presentation includes about 6 or 8 slides that you have already heard once or twice as recently as a month ago, so I'm actually not going to go through those slides. I'm assuming that brevity would be appreciated. If anybody wants me to go back and elaborate, I'm happy to do that. I just included them to show the trail of breadcrumbs to illustrate where we've been in order to understand where we are, because it's been an iterative process. So we've gone over what this ordinance does. It establishes standards for commercial storefronts. We talked about how this is right-sized for Half Moon Bay and has involved a lot of stakeholder input. We did conduct a study session on October 7th, and those bullets outline some of the feedback from that session. As a result of the study session, some revisions were made to the ordinance, and they were all under the theme of cleanliness and maintenance. We also drilled down on clarifying some standards that were vague. We added a section to address vacant storefronts and how they could be more appealing while they're vacant. And then the first reading was conducted about a month ago on November 4th. And out of that session, the feedback received pertained to just allowing more time for stakeholder input, which was the purpose of extending the public hearing to this evening. There was a desire to include windows, specifically the cleanliness of windows in exterior maintenance standards. There was discussion about dumpsters being locked and enclosed within the city limits and how that may be problematic and might need more investigation and stakeholder input. There was also feedback that the draft as it stood was a bit more extensive than originally envisioned, and then that got us to the point where we are this evening. So following that first reading, there was also a November convening of the Downtown Association, which a couple council members had an opportunity to attend along with some city staff. And we received really great specific input during that meeting. I would say the majority of the agenda was discussing the ordinance, the pros, the cons, the concerns. I'd really like to give a shout out to my team, Julissa and Irma, who since the November convening engaged multiple property owners, all the major shopping centers, all the major players downtown and beyond. And then that gave me the opportunity to work with our downtown groups and subsequent committee, and also just individual businesses who reached out to me and had an interest in this topic. Some of them spent over an hour with me individually, and to me, this was really kind of the heart of this whole process. I was really so pleased at the level of civic engagement, and it just, I think, really elevated the draft and resulted in good policy. So out of those conversations, this is where I kind of want to spend the bulk of this presentation. It's on the most recent revisions. There was problematic terms like neat and orderly that just needed more specific language. We didn't want to get so specific to where it becomes overly prescriptive, but we didn't want to be so vague that it left room for subsequent shenanigans and not enough enforcement on behalf of code enforcement. So just kind of finding that line and looking at precedent from other communities. We also removed the requirement that we had originally added after the study session in regards to locked and enclosed dumpsters, because in further research and talk with property owners and merchants, there were some unintended consequences to doing that. It could be time consuming, it could be expensive for property owners. In some cases, it would require a loss of ADA parking spaces in order to accommodate for the additional space. An enclosure would require a coastal development permit. And to the comment made during the first reading, all of that kind of spoke to the fact that this is getting a little bit bigger than originally envisioned. So while taking out that specific requirement, it was still important to address situations that we all have in our minds when we conjure up overflowing dumpsters and clothing bins, and without getting into specific sites. So we added new language that drilled down more. You see that there on the third bullet, the accumulation of rubbish and junk and garbage, et cetera. And then we also referenced an existing code that was strong, but it was not enough without this additional language. We also added a specific reference to windows under the building exterior section, so that was clearer. And while it's not a revision, I still wanted to include that there's a new page on the city website that includes frequently asked questions and just layperson-friendly language that talks about this ordinance and what its goals are and how to support property owners, how they can collaborate with the city. That's still, of course, under development as these iterations go through this process. So That's a summary of the most recent recommendations. And so staff is recommending that a public hearing is conducted, and if concluded, that council waive the first reading and introduce this ordinance into our Muni Code to establish maintenance standards for commercial storefronts. And if that does happen this evening, then next steps would look like a second reading, probably at the next council meeting in December, that would likely be on consent unless there's anything left to discuss. If that does pass and is adopted, then it would take effect 30 days from that date. And then just that ongoing education, collaboration would be ongoing, not only on our website, online's not for everybody. And so it's gonna have to take different forms and just be on our radar for a bit, because it would be a new ordinance and not everyone will read e-news or watch this meeting. And so it's just gonna be an ongoing process. And that concludes my presentation. I would be happy to answer any clarifying questions and invite the mayor to open the public hearing.
Thanks, Karen. Clarifying questions from council? No clarifying questions, and we'll move on to public comment. We have 2 public commenters. That's not a word. We'll open up the public hearing, and we have 2 comments. The first person speaking will be Amber Stowe, and the second person will be Betsy Del Fierro.
Hello, thank you very much, council and city staff, for listening very carefully to the business community and to people who are stakeholders in downtown and in our commercial districts. There was language in the first iteration of this that I felt was well-intended, but it lacked specificity, and that was fixed in this most recent draft. I think that the concerns that we had brought forward were listened to, and I think that everything that we had as a concern was addressed in the most recent draft of the Vitality Ordinance. I'm really happy to hear that there is layperson language in the FAQ, so that can continue to be an evolving document that the city can publish. And I would actually urge the council to move forward with the Commercial Vitality Ordinance tonight. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amber. Our next speaker is Betsy Del Fierro.
Good evening, Mayor Brownstone, members of the council, staff, local community. This is a night for very exciting things. I am so inspired by Alcove and the incredible work. I had no idea that it really even existed, but like us, they are trying to do things to help, to support, and to improve our community. This ordinance we're speaking of tonight was pretty much born at the pretty committee meetings that we have had to create the downtown Vitality Project, of which there's many items, and we presented that to you. So the Blight Ordinance was one of our goals, and we were so happy to be heard. You have done an incredible job, Karen, working with Amber very closely, soliciting the views of all of us, and many of you have come into the downtown. I've spoken personally with a lot of you guys. Thank you. It's happening. It's one of the points on our Vitality Project that is now really coming into fruition, and this is exciting. We are in support of this, and I, like Amber and the rest of us, would urge you to pass this, not because we're trying to be bullies against people that can't get their spaces rented or don't want to necessarily pick up every bit of trash. We're hoping that those types of people will improve their behaviors. We're doing this to help our community become more vital. We're hoping that by this ordinance passing, we will see a community that continues to work together to support one another, to support the landlords and the people that need to do their part. So thank you, thank you. I am excited to see this pass tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. I believe that concludes all our speakers. Nobody online, correct? Okay. Public forum is now closed. Sorry, one Councilmember Penrose. Yeah, for discussion, yeah.
Thank you, Amber and Betsy. I am so excited that the city staff and that the city council are now forming these bonds with our downtown business owners, landlords, lessees. I think that for us to succeed as a city, we need all of us. It takes the village. It takes everybody. I'm very excited about this ordinance. I think you've done an amazing job. City staff has done a great job. I have one question about the ordinance, and that is the idea that if a storefront is empty and we put in, for instance, kids' drawings, Cunha School drawings in the window to be shown, that would be wonderful. But I am fearful that what will happen is if we don't have a time limit on how long things are in the window, that they're going to get faded by sunlight and begin to look kind of ratty. So my suggestion is a 90-day period where they have to be changed up after 90 days. I don't know how practical that is, but it's something that came to my attention especially when I look at some of the windows that we do have where we've got old artwork up there that's looking pretty awful. So I thought that might be a good addition, and I'd like to hear from you and other people how long you think that period should be.
Thank you for raising that. It's a great point. My hesitation with a time frame would be that it would be another thing for the property owner and the compliance officer to track. But I do completely understand that we don't want facades that are faded, that are peeling, that are unattractive, that are dingy. And the part of the ordinance that talks about storefronts having displays in the event that they're vacant, there's a line here that says, for storefronts that are empty for more than 90 days, installing a display on or in any street-facing windows that makes the storefront appear attractive and active, which may include, and then there's some examples. I had checked with our compliance officer to see if the term active and attractive, I understand how that's a bit subjective, but again, we don't want to be overly prescriptive, would be enough to enforce if a temporary display was starting to look dingy, and community development thought that it was. So I think we have enough language as it's written to address that concern, because that was one of our concerns as well.
That's great, thanks. That answers my concern.
And if I may, with the website updates that we're doing, it seems like that's a perfect opportunity in layman's terms to say, we'll be looking, and if whatever you put up becomes, faded, we can lay that out a little bit more clearly there without it overburdening the actual ordinance.
Great, because the idea is not to punish anyone or to make it difficult for anybody, but to help keep the whole of downtown looking sparkling and nice.
Thank you. Any other comments? Oh, we've got a couple now.
I just want to thank Karen. I want to thank you for taking that extra step, that extra time, because I know I was pushing a little hard last time, but I really wanted the merchants' input. So I want to apologize to you. I didn't mean it to be mean. I just wanted to make sure that we do it right, and you did a great job. I want to say that. Betsy, I want to thank you, because I was sitting there having breakfast that morning at Johnny's, and my friend that I knew from high school, you came to me and you said, Pat, I'm really upset about this and these pots over here. And then it grew into this meeting. We talked about the printers building was bothering you, the other building, which we won't mention. You actually inspired this. You brought it forward. And then I just realized it was that seed started this movement right now. And this movement's a big plus. Chrislyn, Amber, big shout out to you, you ladies. Cameron for getting involved. City Council for getting involved, because you guys know I can't do the evenings meetings, which I did in the morning at It's Italia, a couple of those meetings. Matthew was starting to show up. Everybody started to show up and input. This is how it's done. The input all became from everybody that in this town, and that's how we crafted this. So I'm really stoked that we all had inputs on this, with even the details of the pictures, and I agree. Like, if it starts looking bad, then we exchange them. And the idea came from Betsy when she said there was I can't remember what the festivity was, but it was something where we were doing, I think it was jazz or something. It was jazz and wine or something like that. And you were like really upset about the printers building, and you said, I'm going to put artwork, and I'm not even going to ask, I'm just going to do it. And she did it, and I got to say, I walked by, and it looked better than what it did, and that's what inspired how we grew into this ordinance right now. So the seeds coming in is how we can plant this tree, and I think we did a great job all together. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Paul?
I just wanted to comment, I guess in 2 weeks will be my first year on the city council, and just watching this process, I'm all about process, and it was a learning experience for me, but just to watch the community interact together, whether it was council staff, residents, or even business community, to work together to have something, and just to remind everybody this is I call it a living document, that we'll still have something to work on. If it's not perfect, we'll still work at it. So I think that's important to acknowledge that we can work together and get something done.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else?
I just want to say thank you to staff and also the downtown business people for the extra effort to look carefully at the language of the first draft. And I think it's much improved. And thank you for that. I'm happy to support this tonight. I think it's a good move. And I think pride is catching. It affects everybody in ways that are conscious or subconscious, but it sets the tone. And I think we need that tone to support what is a visitor-serving community. 43 or 47% of our budget comes from transient occupancy tax, which is visitors. So we're definitely a visitor-serving community, and we want to act like it. And I really appreciate the effort of the businesses, to bring that forward and to press that case. So thank you.
Well, thanks, everybody. I've really enjoyed attending some of the Downtown Business Association meetings, because when you get a group of people making suggestions, that's when you come up with better ideas than just one or two. And every meeting I've attended, I've learned a lot, and there's interesting codes out there, and figuring out how do you apply them fairly without being prescriptive. And we're dealing with business owners, we're dealing with building landlords. I mean, it's a lot of moving parts. So it was great. It's always just great hearing from everybody, and that's when you also get some really great innovative ideas and some great volunteer ideas as well. So thanks, everybody. Thanks, Karen. And I don't believe there's no motion here. We've had our public hearing.
You will need to ask for a motion to introduce the ordinance. I think, Karen, do you want to pull up that slide?
Oh, okay. I didn't see that motion.
I move that we introduce an ordinance adding Chapter 7.65, Commercial Vitality, to the Half Moon Bay Municipal Code, establishing maintenance standards for commercial storefronts.
Second. Let's have a roll call.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Next item is the adoption of a residential dwelling unit phasing agreement pursuant to Half Moon Bay Municipal Code Section 17.06.055, also known as Measure D. And we'll start off again with the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor Brownstone and members of the City Council. I'm Scott Phillips, Senior Planner in Community Development, and I'll be presenting the requested phasing agreement this evening. A little overview of the presentation. I'll go into some background on Measure D, a little bit about the conceptual project and requested phasing agreement, and then some recommendations. Now, Measure D is our growth management program that manages the rate and quality of development in the city, specific to residential development. And it was codified back in 2009 and includes procedures for implementation. Now, Measure D limits the development of the city to 1% of the population, plus an additional percent to the downtown. Now, issuance of Measure D allocations are required prior to submitting for permits, and that's the primary reason why our applicant has submitted for the phasing agreement, is that they're waiting on Measure D allocations. Now, there is one exemption that's pertinent. Density bonus units are exempt from Measure D. Now, the conceptual project itself is located on the north side of Metzger, between Highway 1 and Main Street. And the applicant envisions 55 new residential units, multifamily development. The site is currently vacant and is outside of the Measure D downtown. So the site is considered an opportunity site within our housing element that was recently adopted by the City Council, with a realistic yield of 41 units. So the 55 units would exceed the realistic yield shown in our housing element. Now, no development application has technically been submitted because the applicant, Mid-Penn Housing, is still in the process of acquiring the necessary Measure D allocations. Now, just to show you, it was a request to include the map, the Measure D map. The site is, I've shown in sort of the red rectangle there, that it's outside of downtown, but yet on the other side of Metzger Street is actually downtown. Now, the proposal, the request is for 55 units, and the initial submittal was back in January of 2024. Since that time, 10 Measure D allocations have been issued to the applicant. In total, they're requesting an additional 44 units, 44 units through the phasing agreement, 17 units in 2026, and 17 in 2027. The remaining 8 units would be covered through a density bonus, which does not require Measure D allocations. Now, the phasing agreement process is also in our code, and what we did here is sort of flow chart of the items that are required through the processing of a phasing agreement. Now, the phasing agreement, for one thing, allows Measure D applicants to be granted more than 50% of the allocations available either downtown or outside of downtown over a set period of more than 1 year, and the applicant is requesting the phasing agreement over 2 years. Now, city attorney review of the phasing agreement is also required. Multiple rounds of the phasing agreement review by the city attorney did take place, and the result of that is included in attachment 5. And then also the notification. I worked with the applicant to come up with a mail out and contact information of all reasonably anticipated developers in 2026 and 2027. Those were sent out by mail and email. And then we also conducted our normal noticing of property owners and residents within 300 feet of the site. We posted the site, and we also published a legal notice in the Daily Journal to advertise tonight's item. Now, the last, the other step in the phasing agreement review is that City Council would need to approve the phasing agreement and make the applicable finding associated with the phasing agreement. And this slide includes the language for the finding. By awarding more than 50% of available allocations to an individual developer by the phasing agreement, no other developer will be unreasonably precluded from receiving all or part of any allocations that the developer may be reasonably entitled to receive during the term of the development phasing agreement. Now, with the staff report, attachment 4 included some data on the Measure D allocations that were previously available and awarded, as well as the requests over the past 5 years. And it also included anticipated demand for 2026 and 2027. This slide includes some of the conclusions and from attachment 4. The Measure D allocations in recent years average around 44 in the downtown and 22 outside of downtown. And then downtown, the requests are usually around 26, where it's a little bit higher outside of downtown, with it usually around 37. Now, in some years, the folks that don't receive Measure D allocations do end up getting the allocations through a transfer in September. So that is one that we've seen in a few years. Now, in conclusion, we do recommend conducting a public hearing. One of our recommendations is to approve the phasing agreement as submitted. The City Council could also modify the requested numbers, and we do recommend giving the applicant an opportunity to speak. For example, as mentioned and gone over, and when the City Council reviewed the housing element, there is a contemplated code update that would only require a half allocation for ADUs. So that could reduce the demand for Measure Ds, and thus allowing for additional allocations in 2027. That would be also something for the City Council to consider. But yeah, a couple of different options. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Clarifying questions, we'll start at the end, come up.
Scott, can you, I've heard this before, and I'm still learning about Measure D. This is one's a little complicated for me, but transfer in December, I've heard this before. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, so the transfer in September, it is at the discretion of the city council. And the idea is that any of the base allocations, so the 0.5% downtown, if there are any left over in September, at the discretion of the city council, the leftovers could be transferred to outside of downtown. Now, that does not include the bonus 0.5% downtown. Those cannot be transferred, just the base allocations.
So from inside to outside is what you're saying, right?
Correct.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. I just want to make it clear first, this is the first time the city of Half Moon Bay has done a phasing agreement for Measure D allocations.
Yeah, just to clarify, this is for Measure D, correct. There was a phasing agreement authorized by the city council for Measure A, but this is the first time that this has taken place for Measure D.
Right. And so some of the questions, maybe it'll come out tonight, I'm assuming this will set precedent, so I'm trying to be careful, how we move forward, but at the same time, it's, trying to do as well as we can do. And that's why I'm trying to make it clear. I heard a few times about 55 units versus 52 units tonight. It is 52 units, correct?
So the applicant is requesting a total of 55 units?
55.
Correct.
So why did I think it's 52? Okay, so then the additional is because of the house? I'm not sure. Oh. Because I thought it was 52, that's why I thought it was 44, and then you add 8. And then I'm going to ask a follow-up, what exactly the 8 you mentioned is density bonus. Can you just explain it so we can understand what that means, why the density did not need a Measure D? But just let me clear whether it's 52 or 55.
It does say 52
Oh.
in 2 places.
Yes, I see the discrepancy. You are correct, 52 units. So,
okay.
Yeah, so 10 have been issued, and then 17 allocations are requested in 2026, 17 in 2027, and then an additional 8 allocations through a density bonus.
Can you explain that, why that doesn't need?
Because Measure D allocations are not required for density bonus because they're exempt as codified.
What does that mean, exempt as codified?
Exempt from Measure D requirements.
Because the code, can you just explain what the code says on that? Oh, okay.
The language of Measure D specifically exempts density bonus units.
Because that's the way the Measure D was written. Yes. Okay, thank you. So those hit on the specific questions.
Any other questions? That's it, great.
So we still need to approve the allocations for 2026, overall allocations, which I understand is coming at the next meeting. So what is the thinking behind approving the density bonuses this meeting and all the allocations at the next meeting? Wouldn't it make more sense to approve all the allocations and then approve the phasing agreement allocations?
Yeah,
Or at least have them at the same meeting?
Sorry, I don't have a light on my mic. I wanted to make sure it was working. Yes, that would make sense, but we also knew that this would be a difficult decision, so we wanted to make sure that council had enough time to consider it before they have to do the allocations, because the code specifies that if there's a phasing agreement, that when you do the allocations, you have to consider any phasing agreements that are in place. So the phasing agreement has to come before the allocations. So it's here tonight because we didn't want to get into a position where council would have a difficult time making a decision and they would have to do the allocations in the same meeting.
Do you know already what the allocations are that will be brought forward on the 16th?
Well, we can estimate. We don't know exactly. They average around 22 in the outside of downtown area and around 44 in the downtown area. But we don't know for sure. And one of the reasons we don't know is because we haven't had access to census data. The federal government census site is not operating the way it usually does. So,
how will you prepare for the meeting on the 16th?
We are figuring that out. Have our best minds working on it. No, we have figured out a way to come up to do the math that the U.S. Census does with the data that they have.
So we'll now open it up to our public forum. We have 6 speakers in the room, and we have a few people online as well. Okay.
It's a public hearing.
Public hearing, when I say public forum, yeah. Public hearing's now open. Our first speaker will be Sophia Whiting, and she will be followed by Reina Diaz.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name's Sophia Whiting. I'm here on behalf of myself and my husband, Orlando Santos. We're both lifetime residents of the Coast Side, and our parents are all small business owners on the Coast Side. And we are hopeful that we can stay in Half Moon Bay and live here with our young son. But over the years, it's been really difficult to figure out how to do that in light of Measure D. We do have a property in our family that's outside of downtown that our family has always been hopeful we could build a family residence for ourselves and our elder parents as well, to try to live and remain on the Coast Side with our families. But the way that the Measure D point system works makes it extremely difficult to hope to get a Measure D allotment, just because certain things, like just where the location of your property is, can determine a number of points. So even if you plan everything perfectly, you just might never get an allotment. So we finally came up with a plan to hopefully be able to qualify for a permit this upcoming year. But that will not be possible if 17 of the anticipated 21 or 22 outside of downtown permits are allotted to one project. So we are in support of both housing density, low-income housing, as well as limiting growth. My parents voted for Measure D. We're in support of limiting growth. Those are all, I think, shared goals that we have. But we also want middle-income families who want to reside on the Coast Side to be able to do that. So my request is to consider the way this will affect all of the other applicants who already have such a hard time getting these limited spots. And a couple of ways that can be considered is Number one, committing to releasing downtown allocations to outside of downtown later in the year, as has been something that has been happening. Whether those would potentially be able to go to this project or to other projects. Another option is to consider the map. I know that's something that's been considered to go on the ballot for the upcoming year. And as you can see, really this should be downtown. It's right across from the downtown map. The downtown map is kind of awkwardly split. And so this really is a downtown area, and there are far more permits available for downtown as a starting point and far fewer applicants. So this should in some way be able to be adjusted so that families who just want to, build residences for themselves are not completely taken out of the picture. Another option, of course, this is a little bit more of the long term, but I have to put, that's the time call. ADUs, put it on the ballot or make them half. It's impossible to build a single family home without an ADU. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophia, for coming this evening and sharing your experience. Appreciate it. Our next speaker here is Reina Diaz.
Hello.
And hang on, she'll be followed by Harvey Rarbach. So, great.
Yes, I got the notice about this project, and I know it has been working. People are working on trying to build in that area, and I really feel that, or I know that 52 units there is just too many. We already have a huge problem with parking. Every time the senior center has anything going on, we get people parked all over, including on that field. And also every evening, all the people that live on Arnold Way come and park, and you can see that there's no parking. Parking is a huge issue. So 2 allocations per unit, I don't think that will be enough. So I am not an architect, but also the structure that I see, it doesn't provide me much information. And that is me because, I'm not an architect or anything like that. And the other thing is that, wait a minute, let me see my notes. It doesn't specify whether the units will be for rent or to own, and who would move in there. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Reina. Are you addressing 555 Kelly now?
No, about Mezcal Street.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the one that we're talking about.
Okay,
here.
thanks.
Yes, and anytime anybody builds, I really would like people to consider servicing people like teachers, firefighters, and also their community members that are here, that have been here for the longest time or since birth, and they haven't been able to buy a house. Let's see, and so, and I never saw anything that says that they will have also a play structure for children. So please consider children and a place for people to meet in the afternoon.
I'd like to just point out that the project is not on the agenda. It's only the allocation of Measure D. So we're just talking about allocating Measure D allocations, but we're not discussing the project tonight. That doesn't even have an application yet. That would have to go to the Planning Commission first.
Okay, well, thank you. But anyways, please consider those points because they are very important to the community there. Thank you.
Thank you, Reina. Our next speaker is Harvey Rarbach, and he will be followed by Timothy Pond.
Good evening, Council.
Half Moon Bay needs affordable housing. That is abundantly clear to everyone who's ever gone to any of these meetings and seen the horrible situation with people who can't afford market rate housing. I understand that what's on the agenda tonight is not approval or disapproval of the project, but I believe that if the council does endorse this phasing agreement, it is a statement that we are in favor of this kind of affordable housing. There's been lots of discussion about 555 Kelly. The arguments against it are it's too high, it's too dense, there's no parking. None of those arguments pertain to this particular project. Mid-Penn, who's the developer, has done an amazing job on Main Street. If you go down the south end of Main Street, that's affordable housing. That is what we need more of in this community. And by endorsing this phasing agreement, it will be telling Mid-Penn and the community that the council and the city is in favor of more affordable housing. So please support the phasing agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Our next speaker is Timothy Pond, who will be followed by Mike Mack.
Hello, thank you for allowing the opportunity to speak. I really think that the downtown map should be changed. Now, you guys had the opportunity to put something on the ballot which would have changed this, but didn't go forward with that. I don't know why. If you look at that map, that has farm fields owned by stakeholders, I think the Pastorinos. I don't know who owns the land out by the sewer district. That is a ridiculously gerrymandered map in favor of stakeholders that have nothing to do with developing a viable downtown. And to leave that in place is unfair. Unfair to people, unfair to the 20 or 30 people that are going to apply for housing this year. Try to build an ADU or a single family home. Having said that, I don't see how you can make the finding, your language in the finding would be that developers are unaffected. Most of the developers that I see for ADUs are single people. They're not developers per se. They are not people that develop for profit. They will be severely affected by this. That's the bottom line. There's obviously going to be probably on the average of 30 or to 40. You're only going to approve 5. That's a big effect. The city also, so JDUs, I'm just going to go on about the Measure D for a second. JDUs can share a bathroom with a house. And how you can require a Measure D allocation for a JDU is beyond me, because you have to share a bathroom with a house. They don't exist as a separate unit on title. So anyway, I think 10 as a number would be more fair, that a phasing agreement for 10. I had a person who's a member of the planning commission call me up and was extremely animated about this, said, oh, they can change that number, they can change that number. And she was one of the people that voted against putting this on the ballot to make that downtown. If you look at that map, why is that hunk carved out there? It makes no sense at all. And yet City Council for a long time and Planning Commission has gone along with this. And it's just plain unfair. One argument was, well, it was put on the ballot. It was put on the ballot by signatures. And therefore it should be put on the ballot again by signatures. Well, your responsibility is to govern and to make government fair. And if we can't have that, then I don't know what your job is up here. So anyway, thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Timothy. And I think
Just a clarification, what is being passed now as a downtown map was the former redevelopment district.
Thank you for the clarification.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and staff. My name is Mike Mack. I'm a local builder in Half Moon Bay. I've been building here since 2000, maybe the year before as well. Went through the whole Measure A debacle and trying to work our way through this Measure D stuff. I live on 604 Metzger, which is directly across the street on the south side of Metzger. And initially, first thing first is the possession arrow these days seems to be pointing towards the low-income housing, the moderate-income housing. And my biggest concern with it, being a builder, is first off, I live across the street. We're going to definitely see a decline in the worth of our homes. Nobody wants a low-income housing development across the street from them. No one that I know. I know we need housing, no question. We live in a neighborhood, and all of a sudden, every street around us it's a neighborhood, and to plop in, 55 units or 52, whatever it is, it's going to hurt a lot of people's. I'm called the kettle black. People don't want that across the street from them, and I just think it's ultra important for you guys to think about the definition of affordable housing. That can bring in a lot of riffraff. Parking is absolutely going to be an issue. There's no question. It's already backed up Main Street. The senior center housing has been, is got Metzger plugged up. It's got Main Street plugged up. And that seems to be the way it works with the affordable housing. It's multiple families move in. They don't get monitored. It's a mess. So I encourage you to drive by, whoever hasn't, not only Metzger Street, but the other affordable housing projects, and take a good look at how many cars are parked up and down the street. It's, we're going to have Pumpkin Fest year round kind of traffic. Anyways, I appreciate you letting me speak, and good luck. It's going to be a tough one. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kimber Moreland.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. I'm Kimber Moreland. I'm a soil biogeochemist. I work at Stanford University as a researcher there. And I'd like to speak more on, maybe this is a little unconventional, but on behalf of the land here. This land throughout the season has many inhabitants and does our community many services, albeit more invisible services. It has home to a soil that filters water, protects our home from floods and saltwater intrusion, and sequesters a lot of carbon for a really long period of time. On top of the soil is a wide variety of plants, including a bamboo grove and a beautiful big old tree. The soil and vegetation support red-winged blackbirds, blue herons, owls, and many other species our community loves and cares about. If this is approved, all of this will be forever changed. The soil will be dug out and filled with outside rock, removing the ability of the soil to sequester carbon and protect us from floods, all while releasing significant amounts of carbon that's been there for hundreds to thousands of years. The plants will be removed, and then the homes of all the organisms will be gone. I know Half Moon Bay needs more housing, and that decision about land management is complex. I ask that your decisions about this land take into consideration these services this land provides for us. Later tonight, we'll be discussing the Climate Action Plan. This plan points to erosion, flooding, and extreme heat as critical risks for Half Moon Bay and that we want to address. The mayor writes in his letter in this, our future depends on the steps we take today. I ask that you see protecting this piece of land as a part of those steps you care, or a part of those steps you take today. If you do agree to this and there is any way to ensure that the development would be done with consideration and care for the land and its intrinsic value, maybe that means reducing the number of housing units, maybe it means the park, or that there's a requirement for natural land where the land can continue to sequester carbon, reduce erosion, and filter our water. I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimber, for bringing an important sustainability perspective into this conversation. Thank you very much. We'll now move to our remote participants. The first speaker will be Heather Burgett Svanovic, followed by Evelyn DeSouza. So Heather, you go first. Thank you.
Great, thank you. You almost got it right. Heather Burgett Slanovic. My family has been in Half Moon Bay for as long as I can remember. My grandparents were on Kelly, and my mom and father moved to the corner of Main and Metzger 30 years ago. Half Moon Bay is, it's our heart. Main and Metzger, like everybody else before me, has already pointed out that we have all the extra cars on the street. But what I'm more worried about with the senior father who is legally blind and the senior center across the street, right now, Metzger tends to have, we have like, what, 12 houses on that street? There's maybe 25 cars that go up and down the street at any given time during the day. My father can walk across the street safely. You're talking about potentially allowing someone to build 55 units and have 106 parking spaces. That means you're talking about potentially having 400% increase in traffic on a street that goes straight into a senior center. The senior center residents leave the senior center. They don't all stay in the senior center. They walk and they do things. And my stepfather walks across that street every single day. I am worried about the safety and the number of cars on that road. Not just for parking, what everybody else has already said is true, but I beg of you to keep it a lower number. I understand we need housing, but I beg of you to keep it at a lower number to keep it safe for the senior center and my father. That's all last thing I really wanted to ask, the 16th, when you're talking about the next meeting, since I don't live there, I just happened to see the sign. Like I said, my father's legally blind. I am the one that has power of attorney for him. I would love to be part of that meeting, to be there, see it, whatever. So could you tell me, is that January 16th or December 16th? That's all.
We're not talking about the project at this meeting. We're only talking.
I know that, but
yeah. So we're not, and we're not going to talk about it at the next meeting either. We would be setting the Measure D allocation for the following year, and potentially ratifying the phasing agreement if we don't approve that tonight. My understanding is both of those things have to be approved this year for the subsequent year. We
and I
can't
get that.
wait. Yeah.
What I'm understanding, though, is that if you guys allow the additional units or allocations, then they can build more units. So you do have some control over the project by having the amount of allocations that you allow to give to them. Am I wrong?
We wouldn't be making a decision about the total number of dwelling units. That would come when the project is applied for and before the Planning Commission. You need Measure D allocations in order to apply for permits. First you get the allocation, then you apply for permits, then the project goes to the Planning Commission, and if it's appealed to the City Council. But we're not adjudicating how many units for the project, how big it's going to be, or anything like that. That would have to come in the future to the Planning Commission.
Okay, so the amount of allocation.
Heather, I'm sorry. Thank you.
It's fine.
When this project comes before the Planning Commission, there will be a lot of opportunity to comment on it. So, thank you. Our next speaker is Evelyn DeSouza, and she will be followed by Michael Farrar.
Good evening, Mayor Brownstone and council members. My comments on the proposed Measure D phasing agreement come down to 4 simple questions about fairness, transparency, and following our own code. First, was this agreement fully reviewed? My understanding is that Measure D requires that the city attorney approve both the form and the content. When I look at the agenda, it says it was only approved as to form. Can we please get clarity that this agreement truly protects the city? Secondly, why give away 2 years of future allocations before we know how many we even have, as to the point that Debbie Ruddock raised? I know that you're setting the 2026 Measure D number next week. I would have preferred that this topic of the phased agreement came up after that, as this agreement would pre-assign 2 years of allocations to one developer. It feels premature and unfair, and a far more equitable approach would be to wait until that 2026 number is set. Thirdly, has the public been asked about proposed Measure D changes? We've been hearing ideas like half allocations for ADUs or rolling over unused allocations, which I think are major shifts, but there really hasn't been the sort of public discourse that we need. Before amending the code, it would be ideal to have the community be involved in a transparent and inclusive process. Fourthly, what has happened to the ADU and JDU policy changes that were discussed last year? Reducing those requirements for ADUs and exempting JDUs entirely will impact housing fairness citywide. It would be ideal if the current Measure D policy was circulated and these proposed changes were flagged for public comment before tying any of this to a phasing agreement. In closing, I'm simply asking for clarity, fairness, and transparency, and for the Council to consider postponing the agreement until the public has had a full and informed opportunity to participate. I hope that in advance I can assume and thank you for your continued commitment to accountable governance. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Our next speaker is Michael Farrar.
Good evening, Mayor Brownstone and council members. I was just as puzzled as some of the council members appeared to be about exactly what we're up to here. I do favor the project. I favor the quantity of the project. But in the phasing agreement, I'm still a little bit buffaloed as to why the 17 must come from the downtown allocation. And maybe there's something legal that means you can't transfer downtown units to it instead of taking it out of the rest of town allocation. So I don't have a feel for it. I'm not sure it was presented to you. How many people would get bumped if you did this? So, and I could understand their disappointment if they were. They may not have seen this coming. So that's about all that I can say is that I've seen the council transfer fairly generously year after year. Why? And so my question is, why couldn't that be how you execute the phasing? And just to be clear, I support the idea of a phasing agreement. It's necessary if we're ever going to get significant affordable housing projects. So that I like the questions that came from Councilmember Ruddock and Navengast and Johnson. And I hope you have a thorough discussion to try and smooth this out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Our next speaker is Julie McHenry.
Good evening, everyone. I have recent experience going through Measure D and was impacted by a similar situation as this one. There was a phasing agreement that had to do with this a project at Hilltop, and that tied up allocations. It created a bottleneck in allocations that has lasted for the last couple of years. And so I also feel like this phasing agreement is premature, And what it will do is create a bottleneck for anybody who is trying to do any kind of, building project that needs a Measure D for outside of downtown. And it could last for years. I mean, the impact could really shift down for years and years to come because of the bottleneck. And one thing I noticed in MidPenn's application that's with this phasing agreement is that they are presuming that they're going to qualify for SB 35 in order to fast track their permits. And because if they did qualify for SB 35, they would be able to bypass CEQA. But my question is, has a proper site evaluation been done? Because if that will need to be done to ensure they could qualify for 35, and my understanding is there's wetlands on that site near Highway 1. And I think this goes to the point from the speaker who discussed the soils. I believe there's a wetlands there, and if there is wetlands, they will not qualify for SB 35. They will not be able to fast track around CEQA, and this project will be delayed for years, could be for quite some time. And then again, if you've already passed this phasing agreement, you've tied up all those Measure Ds. You created a roadblock. So my suggestion is to work with MidPenn to do that site evaluation so that it can be determined if they really will be able to qualify for SB 35. Are there wetlands there? Are there not? I believe there are, and that's going to have a big impact on this. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. I believe that is our last speaker, so we will now be closing our public hearing and come back to council for a discussion.
I'll just start it out just to get us, talking. This is a difficult. For me, it's a difficult decision. Just hearing some of the feedback, whether if we allow outside of the downtown to have this many Measure Ds, will there be enough transfers later on to supplement that from the downtown? And that's, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know that. I also believe, MidPenn has to make some decisions, assuming based on our decision, whether they think they can get the Measure Ds or some kind of guarantee, because I assume their project is probably in escrow or is going to close, so they're wanting some assurances they can work with the city. And I also heard a comment tonight about the city attorney on form and content. And I actually had the same discussion with city attorney too, that the ordinance does say form and content, and versus the agreement in the agenda report only said form. And we can talk later what that means and what the city attorney, how that we can resolve that, or what that means, what council approves, the actual content, what the city attorney will actually, their signature will mean on that agreement. But I also curious, and I think MidPenn reps are here, is there was a timeline in that agreement about building permits by January 1st, 2030. And I look at this request for Measure Ds as front-loaded, 1717, but, if we tried to maybe space it out a little bit more, I'm just throwing numbers. If it was a 3-year 10-10-14, if he still had the January 1st building permit, but to not put as much burden or removing as many Measure Ds up front. So, we would still have an agreement, but whether you could do it a 3-year period instead of a 2-year period. I'm just throwing it out for discussion on that. And then there was talk about the downtown boundaries. Is that part of the implementation plan that's going to be completed or not? So that's not part of that, whether the downtown boundaries or not, because that will, we're dealing with it in place now. So that's why we have to look at what's downtown versus what's outside of downtown. So I'm looking at if there's ways to change the actual number of Measure Ds in a year. If the concern is to try and have building permits by 2030, okay.
They want to be in construction in 2029.
But the agreement said 2030.
Not for building permits.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, and maybe Mid-Penn could explain that. I don't know if they're here. Because typically, Measure Ds, you have a year to get your building permit, and then it can be extended, I believe, 1 or 2 6-month intervals. But just seeing specifically, in Section 3, it talks about January 1st, 2030. So maybe
Great. Yeah,
shed some light on that.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Kevin Griffith from Mid-Penn. And actually, maybe the city attorney or staff would like to also address this, but I believe the 2030 date in the agreement is sort of a use it or lose it kind of provision, so that applicants don't get an allocation and then not build with that application and hold up other folks who might want to utilize allocations. So I think that's really meant to be a drop dead when we would need to have pulled a permit, not an expectation or a plan for when we plan to build and we do hope to be in construction before 2030.
So, but if we change, okay, let me just throw out there since you're here. Let's say we did a 10-10-14 or 11-11-12. Let's say a 3-year instead of a 2-year 17-17. Is that possible, probable, or no way?
Yeah, I think, and I can address that. I think we put the phasing schedule in the agreement in order just to give us the best opportunity. Our project is affordable housing, 100% affordable housing, and it's going to require us to round up a lot of money from County of San Mateo and a big chunk from the state of California. And we would like to have those allocations in place just so we have every opportunity to go after those very competitive funds. And 2 years will allow us the most opportunity to do that. I think if council prefers a 3-year plan, we can make that work. But it might mean missing a round of applications and delaying the delivery of that housing to folks who need it. So 2 years is optimal for us. I think 3 years is workable as long as all of the 34 units that we need are incorporated in the agreement.
Any other discussion points here? So let's see where we're at now. I think you put up 2 options originally. One was around continuing with our resolution approving development unit phasing agreement, unless we want to make some changes to that resolution as currently worded. Does anyone want to change the wording, or are you okay? If not, I'd want to hear a motion.
Personally, I'm good with the recommendation. It's an affordable housing project that we really need. It's going to address multiple income levels. We've seen already what it takes to build an affordable housing project, the multiple funding sources, the need for some certainty. Personally, I'm okay with that. If the rest of the council wants something that fits into a 3-year instead, I'd be willing to consider that. I will say this. I've been very personally unhappy with the pace of bringing forward something that we've asked for now for a couple of years, which is a discussion of Measure D carryovers and exemptions for JDU and reductions of Measure Ds for external ADUs. When we first expressed interest in getting this information under a previous community development director, it's been 2 or 3 years, and still we've had no discussion about that. And I consider that urgent because it's going to take time to go through that discussion, and it's going to be a sensitive discussion because it's going to involve the Coastal Commission and probably HCD. So this discussion should have started a long time ago. And I want us to get a move on that discussion. It would help a lot of people. One question I had earlier was this. Now, I understand that some people may have not been able to get their Measure Ds because they didn't score very highly and they expected to try again, in the coming year. And I'm just wondering, is there a chunk of people who have been turned down that we expect to come forward again to apply for Measure Ds?
Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to provide some clarity on that.
Thank you.
So with the transfers that took place last September, all except one applicant received the Measure D allocations that they requested. And I've been working with that applicant personally to submit again in 2026. So from what staff can see, the bent up demand has been satisfied. So except for one applicant.
And that's largely because we have routinely approved transfers in September.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I know people will want to discuss further, but I'm supportive of the recommendation.
Yeah, I am as well. Unless there was a backlog of people who've been turned down because they didn't score high enough or they didn't make the lottery, then I don't see any reason to break it into 3 years. I don't understand the reason to extend it, especially if it means that Mid-Penn can get the construction going that much faster because they can get the financing that much faster.
Yeah, I support the resolution as currently written. Anyone else want to?
I support it, but the bottlenecking thing is one thing, and that was on Hilltop, if I remember right. I'm worried about that, but I'm hearing there is no bottlenecking. And there's only one person that got, if you want to use the word bumped, he just got delayed. So we don't see this pipeline of people waiting is what I worry about, and that's not the case. So I'm okay with it. And all the other issues of the wetlands, and then Julie called me personally and told me about for fire department, all those will be addressed at a later point. That's not something we'd be talking now, and I understand those issues, but that's not what we're talking about. So with that said, I'm in support of it, but I definitely don't, I'm worried about backlash later on or something happening that we didn't foresee. And what Councilwoman Ruddick was bringing up, I think we need to work on this and have more details later on about the ADUs and the JDUs and all that stuff, because we're still battling and raffling around this. We should have a clear direction on that, which would help us in the future. So I think we need to jump on that, because we've been talking about this, and this is where we're bottlenecking right now.
I still support a longer term, just the 3 years. We don't have a bottleneck now because we took care of it, and I don't have a crystal ball, but we could have a bottleneck in a year or two, just because we're removing so many from the pool. So I still would rather see, I know, the council will move forward, but I'd rather see it 3 years. And to me, and I don't want to speak for Mid-Penn, and I don't know how you go for financing, but looking to make sure the Measure Ds are secured. I mean, to me, that's what you're wanting to do. And I just feel better not taking as many up front in the first 2 years. That's just my.
Would someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I move that we adopt a resolution approving a development unit phasing agreement pursuant to Half Moon Bay Municipal Code Section 17.06.055 for 34 Measure D residential dwelling unit allocations over 2 years and make required findings.
Second.
Can I ask for clarification about the content and form?
Yes, this was the question about the wording in the Muni Code, which requires that the development phasing agreement shall be approved by the City Council at a duly noticed public hearing, the form and content of which shall be subject to the review and approval of the city attorney. And I will say that I found this wording interesting. Pretty much every agreement that the city council authorizes the city to enter into is reviewed by the city attorney and approved as to form. And that what that generally means is that the standard terms, the indemnification, are protective of the city, but the city attorney isn't approving the substantive terms of whether or not it's a good policy idea to enter into that agreement. So the way I sort of harmonize that and the language in the code is that so long as the council is approving the substantive content, in other words, the 2 years, the 17 per year, the content, then I think it's appropriate for the city attorney to then approve the form and the content. I just didn't want to get out of my lane, essentially, because typically the city attorney just approves as to form. But I guess what if the council wants to button this up, and this is the first time we're doing this, so this would, of course, be a template if there are future requests for phasing agreements. I think one suggestion would be that in the place where it is approved as to form, just staff could add approved as to form and content per municipal code section 17.06.055A, just to make it very clear. That would be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we approve the motion as amended by our city attorney.
Second. Can we take a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
No.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ruddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. I'm going to make one last comment before we take a break. Someone, one of our speakers tonight mentioned something about this project, brings riffraff into a community. And I just want to really disagree with that underlying premise. A lot of this housing, and when we define affordable, which was mentioned, low-income folks include teachers these days, people making $80,000 to $100,000, and other workforce housing. And that's what this community has actually been calling for years. Let's have mixed housing projects. And I don't know, I think about my own parents. They were teachers who grew up in a beautiful apartment building in the Bronx. And everyone in that building was professional, and, they weren't riffraff. So I appreciate Mid-Penn coming in and being willing to assess and make an important investment in providing more housing in our community. There are always going to be issues. Traffic will always be an issue. That's the nature of providing more housing in a community. So I appreciate everybody's input on the discussion this evening from the public and council. And, hopefully we can keep moving forward. Thanks, everyone. Let's take a 10-minute break. Okay, everybody. We are going to continue. Thank you. We are up to resolutions and staff reports. Item 10A is to adopt a resolution authorizing participation in the Pooled Liability Assurance Network Joint Powers Insurance Authority Plan. That's a mouthful. Workers' Compensation Program. That was definitely written by a lawyer. Okay, great. My people. Okay, we're going to have a start with a staff report.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, members of the public. So a relatively short presentation. I'm going to be presenting hopefully a participation into a new workers' compensation program for the city. So quick background. So the city has a risk management program. It consists of two big pieces, general liability, which is provided to us by something called the Plan JPA. This is for if someone, a citizen, were to become injured and file a claim against the city. This is a pooled insurance group. The second piece of our risk management program is workers' compensation. In the similar vein, if an employee were to become injured or have an accident, this is also a pooled insurance group. Up until the end of this year, this has been provided by Cities Group, which is also a pooled insurance group. So Cities Group, the city was one of the founding members of Cities Group. This was formed back in the 70s, 1978, so almost 5 decades. Back in June, Cities Group has decided, their board adopted a resolution to dissolve with the last date of operations, December 31st, 2025. Naturally, we brought this to council back in October, which was also approved. And then staff went out and looked for additional options, providers, and we received 3 quotes, which are listed on the screen, ranging from about $90,000 to about $160,000. Even though Sharp came in as the lowest, this is a group that has 4 to 5 members. They're also are considering restructuring. So there's a little bit of uncertainty there about what they're going to do as a group because they're also teeny tiny. So staff recommendation is to join the Plan JPA. So Plan does our general liability. When Cities Group announced that they were going to be dissolving, Plan created an additional workers' compensation program, which some of the members of Cities Group is also joining or intend to join Plan, this new program. It's a little bit more expensive than Sharp, but our recommendation there is because what's happening with Sharp potentially might happen with Sharp, but also that we've been really happy with Plan JPA. They handle all the administrative work for us, and it's a cost savings for the city. So very quick presentation. Of course, I'll answer any questions, but the recommendation is as follows. Authorize the city manager to execute all documents necessary for the city's participation in the Pool Liability Assurance Network Joint Powers Insurance Authority Plan JPA, Workers' Compensation Program, and 2, authorize the interim Administrative Services Director to make a budget adjustment in the amount of $24,000.
Questions from council?
Yeah, just quickly, thank you. Sometimes people seeing numbers, it looks cheaper than, the reality is sometimes it isn't. If you have an accident or that one event happens, specifically I talk about self-insuring, there's some risks associated with that.
Yep.
So that's exactly why we're going the route we are, and that's why we do have funding.
Yes.
To insure.
So exactly right. We didn't look too hard into self-assuring because in addition to the risk associated with that, but also there's a compliance piece with that. There's state requirements that we just don't really have the manpower to take on. But yes, it's the self-assuring is some risk associated.
Any other questions from council?
So on page here, it says, I'm not sure if it's the right one, but it says we have to commit for what, 3 full program years? On page 305, what is that? Is it yearly or 3 years?
It's 3 years, the commitment, but the cost is yearly, and it gets recalculated every year based on payroll and what's happening in the risk pool.
Patrick, is that it? Oh, okay. No public comments? Anyone would like to make a motion?
I move that we authorize the city manager to execute all documents necessary for the city's participation in the Pooled Liability Assurance Network Joint Powers Insurance Authority, also known as Plan JPA, Workers' Compensation Program, and 2, authorize the interim Administrative Services Director to make a budget adjustment in the amount of $24,000.
Second. Take a roll call.
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Our next item on our agenda is item 10B, Draft Climate Action and Adaptation Plan, Phase 2 update. We have a staff report again.
Testing. There we go. Good evening, councils, members of the public. My name is Matthew Nichols. I am the Senior Management Analyst for our Public Works Department. I am joined tonight by staff from Integral Consulting and Blue Point Planning, and tonight we'll be presenting the Draft Climate Adaptation Plan for your comments before we incorporate those comments and bring back the final plan. I will let the staff from Integral Consulting and Blue Point Planning introduce themselves.
Hi, Council. My name is Matthew Jameson. I'm the project manager on this project, and I represent Integral Consulting. And then also on Zoom is Dr. David Revel, a geomorphologist who's also been working on this project as well.
Good evening. I'm Mindy Craig. I'm the principal and founder of Blue Point Planning, and I'm going to be doing the presentation. I think we're going to have David joining hopefully at some point on that, and he'll be here hopefully for the questions, so that's great. So we're going to do a brief presentation and leave some time for any questions or thoughts on that. So I'm going to start off with the purpose and need of this plan. This was really developed and launched as a complement to existing planning efforts and through council guidance. And the purpose of this is to prepare for and adapt to more quickly recover from wildfires, extreme storms, winds, and flooding that we've been seeing here in Half Moon Bay more frequently. A quote that was really important that we heard was, Half Moon Bay is an isolated and isolatable region, and so that is a really critical concern. The other piece, which is really being able to tap into some of these larger funding measures that are coming down the pike, like Prop 4 and SB 272, aligning with and complementing with the safety element that you've heard from most recently. This is a very practical and feasible plan. We've really worked to make sure it is within the city's purview to do all the work that is identified in here and is driven by the community, as well as really connecting to the many different stakeholders and partners here, from state parks to Cal Fire to Caltrans. These have all been important considerations as we've developed the plan. So as I said, this has really been a community-driven planning process. We've thought about the community and really have based the entire plan on what the community has told us. So we really started out with a detailed evaluation of what are the community needs and their concerns. We did listening sessions, we did interviews, we did community open houses, we did scavenger hunts. We worked with the school and had them go through town to do some analysis and do some studying on that, which they loved. We did an online survey. At the same time, we were doing a detailed vulnerability assessment of what was happening in the town. That resulted into a group of problem statements that helped us to understand what are the problems and the barriers we were addressing to create the strategies. We got another round of community engagement to think about the visioning, the goals, what they thought of those strategies and those problems to help us then develop the more detailed, those goals and the actions for that. That then went into a priority screening criteria, and we refined that to the point where we are today to have the final plan. And then we had another round, and it's still out there for community members to comment on online. Some big concerns here, obviously coastal erosion. People really care for that coast. The power outages and road blockages when we can't get out during any of those efforts are really concerning. Emergency preparedness, flooding around the SAM facility and that critical infrastructure, as well as around our creeks. And then on the flip side, when we have droughts in the water supply or lack thereof, and then impacts to the natural landscape. That is something that has really been of concern. But from all of this and our community engagement, we came up with these key 5 goals and a vision. And these have been organizing mechanisms for the entire plan. So the community can see themselves when they look at this plan and see those goals that they help to develop. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these. You can read them here, but this idea of a self-sufficient community, recognizing when those roads close, how do we make sure that we're okay here in Half Moon Bay? What does that take for our homes and our businesses? We want our coastline and our open spaces to be thriving and beautiful. We need to make sure our city infrastructure is resilient enough for all of this work. Make sure the city staff has the capacity to adapt to ever-changing elements and make sure that they can do the things that needs to happen. And then that economic sustainability, make sure that we can support and increase that. So just diving in a little bit on the vulnerabilities, you heard some of this on the safety element. They have really been complementary to one another, learning from the work from one another. This was a very detailed and substantial analysis looking at some of the key hazards, everything from creek and stormwater flooding, coastal wave flooding, the coastal erosion, debris flows. There's obviously drought and heat waves are also the other piece of this, and high winds, which we saw here in Half Moon Bay. Wildfire also is something that is evolving here in Half Moon Bay and how that's going to be addressed. We obviously have the outside of the city areas as a concern, as well as sort of new regulations that are coming down the road. So just diving into how we actually created some priorities. So we developed these strategies that responded directly to these problem statements I mentioned. And we had to ask first, is this within the city's purview? We didn't want to try to fix 101, or excuse me, 1 or the highways. That's not the city's job. Even though there are problems, we can't really do something about that. So really clearly saying that's a partnership activity. The staff is going to have to maintain a long-going relationship there, but we can't actually do that. So what's in our purview? From that, we had a clear action list, and then we did yet another priority screening, and you can see down here on the bottom of the screen, there's several different elements that included cost and the level effort. Did we have a champion who could actually make sure that the strategy would work? Is it feasible? And elements like that. That then resulted in a prioritized action list. So I'm going to quickly, these are some of the key priorities. There's a lot more in here, but these are some of the key priorities, and I'll go by each goal. Goal 1 really is addressing homes and businesses primarily. And one of the key priorities is to bolster and further promote neighborhood-level community emergency response teams. So helping community members to understand how to work together, build that community is a critical one. This is around our coast and our natural areas. One of the key ones was on creekside debris. That was mentioned a lot by both the city as well as from community members, that's a challenge, and we really need to highlight that and address that so that we can also have a beautiful environment, but also making sure that it doesn't create any flooding. An important one on this infrastructure is developing community resilience hubs. So if we want to have a place where we can stay during these different activities, we need a place where we can be safe, we can have power, we can have water, we can have communication. So creating community resilience hubs is a really important strategy for us. And then one on that capacity thing, something that's really important, a grant writer who can help us get those funds. I mentioned the Prop 4 funding, that's coming down the pike. We want to be able to grab that. We have the plan now, and we need just to be able to connect that to those grants. And finally, goal 5, increasing and supporting economic stability. One of the key things is the urban canopy in downtown. We know how important that is, so we want that beautification, and we want to be able to support that and provide shade. So those are some of the kinds of examples of what you'll find in the more detailed plan. So that's our quick, brief overview of the plan, and now we can open it up for some questions.
Council members, yeah. Patrick? No? Paul? Yeah.
Hi. When you say urban canopy, what do you mean by that?
The trees.
So, that's a, right, trees and fire, so that's a...
Right, yeah, and I'll welcome my other colleague here to talk about that. But one of the key things that we recognize is that, as you mentioned, or as I mentioned, we're talking about extreme storms, extreme heat, drought, too much rain. So we have to be careful that we don't go too far on one side of those and miss the other side. So sometimes we go through a couple of wet winters and we forget about those droughts. And so trees is a really good example. We need to maintain our trees for the shade. It doesn't seem like that on some times of the year, so we want to make sure they're well taken care of so the branches aren't falling in high wind, but we also want to make sure that they don't have too many bushes that it can ignite in a fire, so we have to manage that. And we recognize that there's some external forces that are going to be having us to deal with this at this moment, and Matt, I don't know if you want to add some more of that.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor. Oh, let me see if I can. I'm using this mic, so apologies. Is that working? Yeah. Okay, great. Yes, Council. So that's a great question. So, we understand the way firewise policies are going to be applied. I'll just come over here. There we go. Yeah, so we understand that with the fire-wise policies here in Half Moon Bay, especially downtown, as we were speaking about this earlier, actually, these policies oftentimes weren't thought about within the context of downtowns. They were more designed around, say, homes and, businesses in the WUI. So it's really more, in the forest, basically, that interface. And I think that that's something that will be evolving in the future and something that the city would need to be tracking. But in terms of like the immediate, in terms of how it, tie into this, I think that there are ways of landscaping and adding to canopy that would probably not contribute to fire hazard. And I think that's something that would take a little bit further study, but I think that there are plants that you could use that are not going to contribute, and ways of planting that would not contribute to fire hazard, but also contribute to shade. And also, there's other ways to contribute to shade as well. I mean, plants are great, and it's, all the ecosystem benefits and the oxygen, all the cycling, which we need, but also, having shade for, the communities here in town that need it, I think is going to be really important too. So if those priorities can kind of work together, I think that'd be the ultimate goal.
If I could finish it off. So when we first started this, the new CAL FIRE maps had not come out yet. So we originally started under the original CAL FIRE maps, and then Integral also did some of their own fire mapping. Once those new maps came out, we went back, we extended their contract and incorporated that because we felt that that was something that you would want to hear and have incorporated. And from that, yeah, we immediately saw that there was state regulations that were in conflict with one another. And so while we don't have perfect answers right now, that's something that we called out in the plan, that this is something that we need to drill into and figure out how we're going to make these conflicting requirements work together.
Okay, yeah, and there, who knows what could come up in the future too. And one specific item, and maybe I was trying to see how it would fall into this climate adaptation plan, but the Pillar-Cetus Dam, if there was a failure, I mean, we were talking about flooding. I don't know if that relates to a specific event or not. I'm not sure if that.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good question. I mean, I believe that's something that's addressed in the safety element, and not really something that's addressed in this plan.
Yep.
Maddie, if you want to.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So, because I noticed we say it aligns and complements the safety element. So I don't know if we make a reference to it or not, or just stay away, because we did talk about the landfill, the county along the coast there. So I don't know if that's something that gets mentioned or not, or.
The landfill specifically is mentioned.
Yeah, it is in there. That's why I wondered if what Pillar-Cetus would be mentioned or not, the dam failure.
Right. I think on that particular one, we were trying to stay in our lane and leave
Okay.
that to the safety element. So
Staff had directed them not to go into that direction.
Okay.
I'd like that you mentioned neighborhood planning. I'm very interested in neighborhoods, actually, and about, building sustainability and mutual aid and all those sorts of things. And I've always thought, given the layout of Half Moon Bay along, Highway 1, that neighborhood plans might be a good idea. And I was thinking originally, capital improvement projects. But I like that you brought up, planning for, climate impacts. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about your concept about neighborhood, planning and neighborhood strengths and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's getting to be even a stronger area for communities. It's funny, I'm doing it in my community right now. It's a fire-wise community, and you can group together 50 houses or so, and you work together on the vegetation management. And also, you start to understand, do you have eaves on your house? How do you think about the vents? And so you can work as a community to look at how do you harden your home to some of these fire impacts. And so that's a great way to start to have that community-led engagement. Also making sure in an emergency, you know who your neighbor is. You know if they may not be mobile, and you can help them in an emergency. So there's a whole bunch of different dimensions of that. It also is just it's a community building thing that helps that sort of strengthening of the community. So I think that's a really important piece. And when we think about the city's purview there, it's helping them to facilitate that, to be able to, is there education materials, is there resources that can be created to enable those communities to know that this even exists, so it's a great way to sort of have the city have you're obviously not going to be doing that work, but you're helping the communities and businesses, frankly, get involved in thinking more clearly about it.
Yeah, and CERT is important there too.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've been interested in how do you do this without creating silos, having people silo in their neighborhoods? How do you plan at the neighborhood level and then bring it all together, community-wide?
Yeah.
But I think that's really important for our sustainability and self-reliance, given the fact that we are isolated and isolatable.
Well, I think about your farmers markets, and you could do a group events at farmers markets or at your new John Carter Park and those sort of things where you bring them all together and share. I think there's some opportunities working with some of your programming and community events that could really highlight that in a positive way. I like that idea.
Did you do anything like identifying any early projects, as example projects that we might take on?
Yeah, so one of the recommendations in the plan is to use this plan kind of as the framework and the outline to go into those neighborhoods, into those communities, meet with our CERT teams in those communities, and kind of having this as the master overarching document, being able to go in and have those conversations and create more specified documentation that's more community specific. When we first started this work, we had the conversation of how zoomed in or how zoomed out do we want to be, because we didn't have the bandwidth to do both. And we figured that by taking a zoomed out approach, we could get a better view of some of the things that impact Half Moon Bay on the outside. So transportation, power, communication, things outside of our city limits that impact us directly. And we can take that knowledge that we've learned and go into those neighborhoods. And so that would be a very easy and low lift, low effort thing that we can do to hit the ground rolling, is meeting with those CERTs, meeting with those neighborhoods, and creating more drilled down plans.
Sounds really good. Yeah, I think that the next phase of this will be, really interesting about how we pull it all together and make it real for people. And maybe when we have staff reports on various issues, I know we identify financial impacts. Maybe we cite, is this related to our climate action plan, and try to make it, real that way. But, it looks great, and I really appreciated all the public outreach. I think that's super, super important. So, thank you.
Can you add CERT to the plan that you just showed us?
I'm sorry?
Was CERT actually mentioned in the plan that you showed us? It was, right?
Yeah, and I think I just had it as that it's one of our priority actions, actually.
Right.
Oh, it's one of our priority actions. I just brought it back up on 1, 2, 3. Bolster and further promote the neighborhood level community
Right, you got
emergency
it there,
response
okay.
teams. Yeah, so that's definitely a priority.
Because they're such a great resource, because they are already in the neighborhoods, and they have a common program for, fire safe communities.
Exactly.
So we'll give that consistency, versus just the silo, but customized to those neighborhoods. And it's probably one of the most evolved systems we have. And when nothing else is working, they'll be there. So in terms of grants, do you also recommend particular grant writers who have a high rate of success? Ideally, working on a contingency, but
there certainly are folks out there. We haven't said who that should be, if it's internal to the city or if it's somebody you hire as a contract. And I imagine over time you might change on some of those things.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if.
Because I think that is such a huge priority, and the quicker we start maybe on identifying a great grant writer.
Yeah.
Because, money's tight. So if there's stuff available now, someone who's already an expert around both those grants and also understanding, our cities and making a good case. I think that's essential to really get this thing off the ground quicker and effectively. So that would be great if you can also add that in too. Appreciate it. Okay. Time to make a motion?
I thought this report was, I'm sorry.
I do have two speakers. Go ahead.
I just thought this report was really well written, and I really appreciate, the Keogh ditch, the Pullman ditch was brought up. And these are things that we've been bringing forward to council for a long time. The canopy, which was, I guess, Councilmember Brian, I was thinking the same thing. You know, here we are told to take the trees out, and here we are being told to put them in for shade. But we also have agricultural workers that need shade for work, which you mentioned. You also brought forward public works should be monitoring cracks and movement of the earth, and that kind of data, I think, is a great thing that we should be doing. And there's other things I'd love to see public works do too. You know, while they're doing their rounds, they make notes on things and report back, and then you guys have a long list of things. This is movement, that's eroding, and we need to fix that sign and that thing too. So I'm making Todd work even harder. But it was well written. It was almost to the point where it's kind of depressing. You know, you're thinking there's a major disaster going on here, but you guys really did a good job. I mean, this was a lot of reading, but I was very impressed with it, very impressed with it.
We have a few public comments. Just want to mention that Jimmy Benjamin, who we all know, has provided us a couple of pages of thoughtful comments, and but he can't be here this evening, so we will take time to read through those individually. But we have two speakers. First is Chad Hooker, and he will be followed by Kimber Moreland.
Good evening. I've been in front of this group before talking about how I think the city needs to spend its money getting some work done, not hiring people to tell you how to think about planning for getting the work done, and I'm back to say that again. I saw that this report this contract was let to Integral Consulting for $200,000, and that number made me think maybe I should read this report, so I did. And I'm dismayed. I assume that each of you has read it as well, so I'll just ask the sort of obvious question here. Did you come away after reading this report, reading this document, with anything more than a few small crumbs of new information? Or did you, as I did, come away from it feeling like it's full of a lot of buzzwords, but it doesn't tell you where to go next, what to do next, except to proceed to yet another plan, have yet another report? And that's what I think we should not be doing. I can barely read my own writing here, so please be patient. This report focuses well on a plan. The information is well organized. There are plenty of flow charts and little circles and arrows. It looks like the back of a United Airlines magazine with where do they fly. Everything's all connected together. But if you look carefully at all of that, there's not real information there. It's just a bunch of lines and circles that's supposed to look like information. It doesn't tell you anything that you didn't already know. So I think we need to know how to do exactly, we know what needs to be done. We need to actually do it. Not how to keep moving forward on what the staff report refers to as this roadmap toward a plan. Now I get that you'll need to pass this tonight. You'll need to adopt this so that it's a guide to future planning, also words from the staff report. Future planning, I can't quite guess what that'll entail. But this will position the city for funding opportunities. I realize that without such a plan in place, you can't apply for grants. But this is enough. No more studies, no more updates, no more subcontract consultants. Just no more long paragraphs and pages of wordsmithing that don't really tell us anything that we didn't already know. I agree with Patrick, this is well organized, it was informative in some ways, but I came away from 150 pages feeling like I didn't learn a whole lot there, and that was a lot of reading. It's time to clean the creeks, protect the sand plants, spend the city's money fixing storm drainage problems instead of getting reports about storm drainage problems. I'm not just complaining here as a taxpayer. These reports, it takes a year to do this. So I need to caution you about something. In the appendix, there is a goal 4, build and sustain the city's capacity to increase resilience. The first item in that reads, provide an annual climate hazard report for the council to track impacts and vulnerabilities. They want you to hire them again every single year. Don't do this. It's time to actually do the work. The city doesn't have a lot of money. Let's spend what we've got fixing what we know needs to be fixed. You take on the 5 major projects that you know about in town, it'll fix a lot of the other stuff. All this connectivity that the report talks about, that'll go away if you fix the major things that need to be fixed. Please spend our money responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Our next speaker is Kimber.
Hello again. Thank you for this time. I appreciate it. I also commend the efforts and care to protect our community. As I read through this report, there are a lot of things that I took away with me that I absolutely agreed with and saw that were very warranted. There are a few things that I wanted to point out for spaces for refinement that I think some could be some low-hanging fruit and align with the priorities that you guys have outlined here. I'd like to speak to the concern of the Half Moon Bay farmers, especially because of the specialty crops vulnerability to extreme heat and flooding, which I think in California we know are supposed to be the biggest impacts from climate. And just a little bit of a background, I worked for the USDA for the past 5 years as somebody helping to implement best management practices for farmers. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of information out there. It's not expensive, and the information about what best management practices for this community could have is there. It just needs to be communicated. And I think with some of the community connections that this report brings up of who they're going to be working with and reaching out to, it would be it is identified as one of the highest risks, but I think it lacks in its actual implementation after it's identified as one of the highest risks. There's not much prioritization in how that's going to happen for one of our most vulnerable and valued community members. Secondly, I wanted to point out that the current efforts that have happened, such as the coastal trail expansion, I know that these are very well-intentioned and meaningful. I appreciate them, but I think that they could be done with better care and refinement, especially that align with the goals of this type of report. For example, there is major machinery and equipment that included tilling and removing of plants. It also looks like one of the rocks that was used is serpentinite. I haven't tested this, so I can't confirm that. But typically, serpentinite has high metals in it, and it inhibits plant growth forever in that environment. Also, some of the things that were done are known to increase erosion and flooding risk. So I think I would really appreciate that as we move forward and as this report outlines that this work needs to be done, that there's expectations, rules, and guidelines for the implementations being made about the contractors we're working with and how they're going to be doing that work, that they're using science to prove and using best management practices that take into account our ecosystems as opposed to just profit about what we're trying to do, and that they know our rules, our expectations, and guidelines to do that. And that, yes, the work is done, but it's done using science and good sense and care for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimber. That's it for public comments. Okay. So back to council discussion. Any further feedback and direction for final preparation of the plan?
I think it's a great beginning. As Chad Hooker said, we need to have resolution. We have a lot of people with those Keogh Ditch and the Pullman. We have the people in Kenyatta Cove, poor insulation, as you guys pointed out. I saw the details, a lot of good details, but the data's there. And the next level is to come up with a plan to resolve some of these. The creeks with debris in them, they brought it up, the planning commissioners brought it up, they live by it. They're clogged up. We've got the unhoused people living in those creeks that are creating some of the problems there too. Plus, you even mentioned it, they're actually forgotten and they're in there, and then that's a hazard too because they die or they could get injured. So I read the details and I put myself in each one of these. We need to have a plan, and this is the beginning of the plan. So Chad, I understand what you're saying. But this is the beginning of it, and then now we have to do action. And these are most of these items in here were brought up on what do we want to try to accomplish. And I think the erosion and the ditches and all that stuff was one of our items. So we do have a plan. You haven't been going all the meetings yet, but we are pushing forward. But we have to do it in a slow process. But this is a good Bible.
And as somebody who comes from the grant-making world, it really helps to have a plan if you want, state park bond money and, water money. And, so I think you recognize that, Chad, and that's, yeah. Yeah, we got it now.
What does staff need here?
Well, I'd defer to Matt, who's the project manager on this. But I think the comments have been pretty clear. There's probably some minor tweaks that'll be made, and then we'll bring it back on the 16th for adoption.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for staying. Appreciate it. All right. Our last agendized item of the evening is the authorization of interim legal services agreement. Do you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just give a very quick overview on this. As we know, we're transitioning our legal services here in Half Moon Bay. We went through an RFP process that was narrowed down by the council, and after interviews, the council has selected the firm of Burke, Williams, and Sorensen LLP to provide interim city attorney services to the city that we hope to get up and running here in the next, during this calendar year. And so with that goal in mind, the council met in closed session to just talk about some of the negotiating points that are important. And this item tonight is just seeking authorization by the council for a committee of the mayor and the vice mayor to finalize negotiations and execute that interim agreement, which would be for a term up to 6 months. Of course, with the option to make it a permanent appointment, which would come back to the city council for further consideration down the road. So we're looking for a motion tonight authorizing the mayor and vice mayor to negotiate and execute an interim legal services agreement with Burke, Williams, and Sorensen LLP for a period of 6 months with the option to convert to a permanent appointment.
I'll make the motion to authorize the mayor and vice mayor to negotiate and execute an interim legal services agreement with Burke, Williams, and Sorensen LLP for a period of 6 months with the option to convert to a permanent appointment.
Second. Can I have a roll call?
Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Nagengast?
Yes.
Councilmember Penrose?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Mayor Brownstone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Commission committee updates.
The only update I will give is there are no further meetings of the Planning Commission this calendar year, so they'll resume in January. And then because of the timing of our regularly scheduled Recreation Commission meetings, which fall usually the day before Thanksgiving and somewhere in the Christmas break period, we traditionally cancel those two meetings and hold a special meeting in the middle of December. And so that will take place on, I believe it's December 10th. And so that'll be our final Recreation Commission meeting of the year.
Thank you. Future items for future discussion, possible agenda items. Councilmember Penrose.
I think I spoke about this last council session too. A young man with a child that couldn't have been more than 2 years old at the most he was carrying them in a backpack, went through 2 stop signs going at least 20 miles an hour, maybe longer than that, didn't turn his head. I saw the same guy with a baby in his arms as he's driving, going through a stop sign 2 days ago.
Driving what?
Driving an electric bike. An electric bike. Or, or something else that looked like an electric bike. But I don't know what we can do with state regulations being the way they are, but I definitely want to talk about it, and I definitely want us to come up with something where we take action. I don't want to see a kid being killed. I don't want to see anybody dying from something stupid like this.
So you're talking about e-bike safety?
I'm talking about, e-bike safety and e-bike regulation.
And if I may, just to clarify, we're not just talking about the coastal trail anymore. We're talking about just broadly, streets,
Absolutely.
trails.
Absolutely, yeah, period. And I don't know who we need to get in to talk about it. But, maybe somebody from the state ought to be here.
I would add the
schools and
word
different-
enforceable. I mean, this is what, a lot of cities are struggling with this. What is enforceable? You could have regulations, you know what I mean? And we
I
already have
understand
them.
that.
Yeah.
I get that. I know it's difficult. I want to be the city that does something about it. I don't want to say, okay, it's a hard problem. We can't deal with it because everybody's having the same problem and the state's making it so difficult. I want to do something. I want to do something. And maybe it means we have to invite Governor Newsom here to a city council meeting to have a discussion. Maybe that's what we do.
We actually expressed interest in tackling this back in, it was either August or September, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the first time we've talked about it.
And the BPAC committee is working on something, but that's the coastal trail, I think, only. Right? They're working on the e-bike safety.
I don't know that it's just the coastal trail. I
Oh.
have Jim Sullivan's presentation, but I think it was more than that, but I'm not
Because
sure.
they are going to bring something for us to look at, and I don't know if that's the time to talk about it at that time. There is something that the BPAC committee is putting together.
Yeah, everybody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. Nobody's doing anything. I would like to do something.
Yeah.
And my suggestion is that city staff invite Governor Newsom or someone like him to come to city council meeting, Matthew,
Well,
and talk to us about it.
yeah, or somebody like him, but certainly someone maybe at a state level, because I'd be interested in someone explaining as to why the state passed the legislation that it did, overriding all local. What was even behind that? Was that lobbying by the
Yeah.
e-bike? Just to get some ideas about how to, approach this situation. I think a lot of people are concerned. I walk the trail every day, and every other day I yell at somebody going too fast. Or not having a bell on their bike, or not even saying they're coming up on us, and they're quiet. And this is a council, well, before you came aboard, both of you, that unanimously, much to my wonderful surprise, wanted to ban e-bikes on the trail, portions that we can control. And but then we got upended by state legislation. So,
Well, my impression from going to the Bike and Ped Committee meeting was that they were actually wanted more specific direction from the city council. So I'm going to
Yeah,
second
they
your
don't know what
motion.
they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. We need to attack it, and we need to attack it in an intelligent way, and we need to take it on as a serious problem that we really want to solve, not just talk about. But solve.
The joint meetings we've had with Planning Commission, I think have been successful. I wonder if something similar, a joint meeting with BPAC, a special study session on this topic might be helpful.
No.
No?
No, I cannot bear the thought of sitting around talking about how dangerous it is to ride an e-bike. and have us all agree that it's just a terrible problem and we need to do something about it. No, I want to do something about it. I don't want to have a meeting about it. We all know it's an issue. We all know it's an issue that's difficult.
Well, let's bring in, if we're going to bring in a speaker, well, we could do it remotely. We don't have to worry about them, whether or not could be here in person. But I would start with maybe Josh Becker, and then he could recommend someone who's closer to the issue at the state level. It might not be our
Yeah, Josh is a good one. And I think he'd be willing to do it.
Yeah, he's someone who speaks to the governor, so I think that might be a good start.
Yeah, you have an 11% chance of dying on an e-bike if you have an accident. 11% chance of dying. Regular bikes, 1%, less than 1%.
Yeah, I nearly had a head-on collision in the summer from a kid, 10-year-old, riding a bike with a throttle and looking at his phone,
11%. Okay, I'm taking my e-bike off my Christmas shopping list. Thank you. Wish list. All right, I agree, and it's something that troubles me all the time. So,
okay, other than inviting Governor Newsom, I'm a little unclear what the direction is because it seems like we have to have a conversation.
Invite Josh Becker.
Okay. I did mark down reaching out to our state officials, but what?
We need to deal with e-bike safety and regulation.
And what is he going to do about it?
We're going to start tackling
So
it.
is this just a business item in the future where we invite someone to come and address this issue?
Yes, I think that's the way to do it.
Let me just say that I attended the Bike Ped Committee meeting, and my appointee, Jim Sullivan, actually brought a presentation. And I think maybe we start. He's looked into the issue about what to do.
We don't need a presentation. We know it's a problem. We need to be talking about the people who are doing something about it. This is,
I remember.
It's going to we spend so much time getting ready for things, preparing for things,
Well, maybe
having meetings about things, writing papers about things.
He consolidated what a lot of different cities are doing. I thought it was very useful. But
I haven't seen that presentation. Yes, I'd like to see it. And maybe we can invite the Bike and Rec Committee to identify. You remember when we were looking for a model for the CARES program, right? And there were very few programs out there that did quality community policing. And there was that group from, where was it? In
Oregon.
Oregon, right?
Eugene.
Yeah. So perhaps they can recommend someone from a group like that that's actually doing something in their community that we can model something off of.
I think Jim Sullivan probably knows who some of those people might be. So.
Yeah, okay. Sounds good. Okay, anything left on here? I believe that's it. Oh, city council reports. How can I forget? Any city council reports? All right. I know you're sad to see me do this, but we are going to adjourn this meeting. Thank you all. Thanks for our late audience here staying. Appreciate it, everyone. Good work tonight. Thank you.